We'll continue our discussion of some of the verses of the Siksastakam prayers, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antilila, chapter 20. And we'll continue to discuss about the habits and systems that dominate our life and make it easy or difficult for us to develop proper bhakti habits. So we want to dispel, as you've been hearing, we want to dispel the notion that it's all about your raw willpower and determination. Never mind the habits that form the systems of your life, and never mind your environment. And you may recall that we're stressing the theme that if you want to upgrade your bhakti lifestyle, you have to look at the collection of conscious and unconscious habits that form your systems. And you have to look at the environment that you're embedded in. And you show your heroism not by manifesting raw individualistic determination to climb up the rock face of the mountain, but you show your heroism by restructuring your environment and altering the systems of habits that make up your life. One other point, we were very happy to hear how one guest who's attending the Bhakti gathering for the first time at this festival, after hearing the Sankirtan presentation last night with so much emphasis on sets, he decided to buy a set. It's contagious. Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis. Tacharpita Niyamata Smarane Nakalaha. Etadrasi Tava Kripa Bhagavan Mamapi. Durdaivam Idrasamiha Janinanuraga. Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis.
Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis.
Tacharpita Niyamata Smarane Nakala.
Tacharpita Niyamata Smarane Nakala.
Etadrasi Tava Kripa Bhagavan Mamapi. Durdaivam Idrasamaha Janinanuragaha. Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis. Tacharpita Niyamata Smarane Nakala. Etadrasi Tava Kripa Bhagavan Mamapi. Durdaivam idasamaha janina nuraga.
Namakari Bhutani Sarvashakti.
Namakari Bahutani Sarva Shaktis.
Tatra Pitani Amita Smaranena Kalaha.
Tatra Vitani Amita Smaranena Kalaha.
Ekadrishitava Kripa Bhagavan Mamapi.
Ekadrishitava Kripa Bhagavan Mamapi.
Daivam Idrishamiha Jaminanuragaha.
Durdaivam Idrishamiha Jaminanuragaha.
Namakari Bahutani Sarva Shaktis.
Namakari Bahutani Sarva Shaktis.
Tatra Pitani Amita Smaranena Kalaha.
Tatra Vitani Amita Smaranena Kalaha.
Ekadrishitava Kripa Bhagavan Mamapi.
Ekadrishitava Kripa Bhagavan Mamapi.
Durdaivam Idrishamiha Jaminanuragaha.
Durdaivam Idrishamiha Jaminanuragaha.
Namakari Bhutani Sarvashakti.
Namakari Bahutani Sarva Shaktis. Tatra Pitani Amita Smaranena Kalaha. Ekadrishitava Kripa Bhagavan Mamapi. Durdaivam Idrishamiha Jaminanuragaha.
Vaishnavis,
Namakari Bahudani Sarva Shaktis. Tatra Pitani Amita Smaranena Kalaha. Ekadrishitava Kripa Bhagavan Mamapi. Durdaivam Idrishamiha Jaminanuragaha. Namakari Bahudani Sarva Shaktis. Tatra Pitani Amita Smaranena Kalaha. Ekadrishitava Kripa Bhagavan Mamapi. Durdaivam Idrishamiha
Nam Nam of the holy names of the Lord. Akadi, manifested. Bahudha, various kinds. Nijasarva Shakti, all kinds of personal potencies. Tatra, in that. Arpita, bestowed. Niyamita, restricted. Smarane, in remembering. Na, not. Kala, consideration of time. Etadrisi, so much. Tava, your. Kripa, mercy. Bhagavan, O Lord. Mama, my. Api, although. Durdaivam, misfortune. Idrasam, such. Iha, in this, the holy name. Ajani was born. Na, not. Anuraga, attachment. Translation. My Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, in your holy name there is all good fortune for the living entity. And therefore you have many names, such as Krishna and Govinda, by which you expand yourself. You have invested all your potencies in those names, and there are no hard and fast rules for remembering them. My dear Lord, although you bestow such mercy upon the fallen conditioned souls by liberally teaching your holy names, I am so unfortunate that I commit offenses while chanting the holy name, and therefore I do not achieve attachment for chanting. Please repeat. My Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead. In your holy name there is all good fortune for the living entities. And therefore you have many names, such as Krishna and Govinda, by which you expand yourself. You have invested all your potencies in those names, and there are no hard and fast rules for remembering them. My dear Lord, although you bestow such mercy upon the fallen conditioned souls by liberally teaching your holy names, I am so unfortunate that I commit offenses while chanting the holy name, and therefore I do not achieve attachment for chanting. Om Gana Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitang Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Sri Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Chaitanya Charitamrita introduces this verse by pointing out that after announcing Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam, the total victory brought about by Sri Krishna Sankirtanam, the chanting of Krishna's names. And we pointed out yesterday that total victory is not simply on the macro level, the wide scale level, but it has to be on the individual level. And we spoke yesterday about how every devotee needs his or her own personal victory about how emphasizing your chanting or re-emphasizing your chanting brought about a victory in your life. Perhaps you were meeting some massive challenge in your life, or maybe just through routine neglect or lack of attentiveness, the hearing and chanting focus in your life had faded a bit. One could say due to pressures from family life, working life, traveling life. Every ashram can come up with its excuses. Illness, this, that, the other. However it happened, and don't forget we pointed out the other day, it can come about, such a desert in your spiritual life can come about through unenlivening association. Association in which, well, yeah, you know, maybe not everyone chants their japa, and what can you do? I mean, attentiveness will have to wait until you're 60 or 70, you know, you just gotta do certain things right now, work it out of your system, and that's the effect of association, which we'll speak more about today. So however the desert, the drought originated, every devotee needs his or her own personal victory about how you turn the ship around. And that does involve willpower. But the willpower, as you've been hearing, is mostly demonstrated in how you attack the various systems and subsystems of your life. The sum total of all those little habits. So we asked you, make a list of all your conscious and unconscious habits. Everything from waking up to brushing your teeth, and put a plus or a negative sign next to each one, whether it's positive or negative. And then you see the systems, the sum total of the systems that are dominating your life. But today we'll talk more about association. The environment, your chanting environment, doesn't simply include inanimate objects around you, but it also includes persons. We spoke the other day about something called nudges, how behavioral scientists have figured out that by rearranging what's around you, your behavior is nudged in a certain direction. Remember? If you're in a corporate cafeteria and you want your staff to lay off the sugary drinks because it's making them sick and they're not as productive as you'd like them to be. So in the cafeteria, you put the sugary drinks in an out-of-the-way place, and in the most visible places, you put bottled water. And then, lo and behold, what happens? People start reaching for the water more because it's right in front of them. That's called making the things you want visible and the things you don't want invisible. So we talked about, for example, smartphone-itis, how your real partner is your smartphone, and you can't breathe without it. And then you wonder where all your time is going. You spend as much time on social media as you should be chanting good japa. And so, why not just put the phone in another room? Oh my gosh, it's like a mother neglecting her child. In other words, sort out your external environment in terms of the arrangement of inanimate things. Another company decided it wanted its staff to exercise more because that'll bring about more profit when you have a healthy staff that doesn't have so much absenteeism or lethargy due to sluggishness, bad health. So what did they do? They didn't tell anyone. The corporate headquarters was a multi-level, multi-story building with an elevator or two. Guess what happens when an elevator stops at the floor and the doors open and then the doors close? Usually there's a 10-second pause. So what they did was they increased it to 30 seconds. So that, what do people think? What would people think of that?
Broken.
No, they think I might as well walk up the stairs. And that's exactly what the execs wanted. For better profit, we want a healthier staff. The elevator comes, the door opens, you go inside, and you expect in 10 seconds the door closes and it goes up. But no, you're waiting 30 seconds. So people say, what's going on here? I might as well just walk up the stairs. So that's an example, a classic example of how your environment shapes you. And if you want to change behavior, change the environment. But what about people? Elevators and smartphones are not the only constituents of an environment. You have people. So it's common sense that one of the most effective ways to build better habits is to join a culture where your desired behavior is the normal behavior. If you want to be enthusiastic about hearing and chanting, make your environment include a culture, a company culture, so to speak, where everyone is always thinking, how can I tighten up my bhakti practices? It's a constant effort. And obviously that kind of environment will play a major role in your achieving your goals. is a fact of behavior that new habits seem achievable when you see others doing them on a daily basis. And when you don't see others doing them on a daily basis, what do you think? It's not achievable. This one's not doing it, that one's not doing it, the other one's not doing it. Yeah, that's the norm. Not that it's the only example, but it's a common example. Mothers who have children, they often spread the word. You can't chant your rounds when you have a child. No one does it. Then you bring up the name of someone who does it. Well, that's a special case. And naturally, you don't want to feel guilty. You want to feel good about yourself. And so you surround yourself with those who have the behavior that you want to have. Yeah, when I'm with my group, we all realize no one chants. How can you? You have a child. It's impossible. No one does it. There are a few freaks, of course. There are always a few freaks. There are mystic yogis and of course there are examples for the men. I'm working a full-time job. What more do you expect out of me? One day, when I'm 60 or 70, when I'm retired from family life and retired from working, then I may get into it. But right now, it's just not possible. We've got to be practical. We men, we are dealing with the real world. So your desired habits seem achievable when you see others doing them on a daily basis. In other words, your culture sets the expectation for what is normal. If you associate with persons who take intoxication, associate with persons who are meat eaters, that's the normal thing. And if you associate with persons whose behavior is saintly, you'll be inspired to be saintly because you see that's the norm. So yes, we want to establish a culture and maintain a culture which perpetuates Krishna's norms. That's the most beneficial thing for the individual and for society. So if you're smart, you surround yourself with people who have the habits that you want to develop. You surround yourself with people who have the habits that you want. And if you're dumb, you surround yourself with people who don't have the habits you want. And you'll be influenced, unless you're abnormally strong enough to pull them up. But don't bet on it. So what we want is an environment of friendship and community that allows you to have a beneficial system of habits. And that environment of friendship and community helps you sustain desired behaviors. Of course, you have to know what you want. Now, one thing to bear in mind, especially when you're a newcomer to bhakti, one of the hardest things to do can be changing tribes. Human beings are very tribal. No matter how individualistic they present themselves, they want to be part of a group. We like this kind of music, or we like this sport, or we like this hobby, or we have these views. Some or other, human beings always want to fit in, even if it's a group that's against everyone else. I want to fit into that group that's against all the other groups. One of the difficult things that newcomers to bhakti encounter is they realize I'm changing tribes. I'm going from the Maya tribe, the illusion tribe, to the bhakti tribe. And persons in my old tribe, they don't understand what I'm doing. They think I'm missing out, or at best they think, what you're doing is good, it'll last for a few years, that's okay. And then you'll revert. But it's okay for you to, take a break from the party scene, take a break from the indulgences. Yeah, okay, it'll last for a couple of years. So that's also a very, that mentality affects you. Oh, I'm just doing something that'll last a few years. Sometimes in the past when we would have parents of initiates, the initiates would ask their parents to come to their initiation yajna. And I could see from where I was sitting the reaction on the parents' faces, like when they hear their children recite the vows for the four regular principles, the parents are like, yeah, right. This will last for a couple of years. The very parents who, when girls are 14, tell them, bring your boyfriend over into your room, let him live with you. These are the responsible parents. So they hear the initiation vows, and they're sitting in that corner generally, and I'm sitting here, and I look over, and they're like, They can swallow barely seeing their kids bow down and who is this person they're bowing down to? They never bow down to me. We tried to take care of these kids when they were young. I mean, Mom was living over there and Dad was living over there. We did our best. We let them do whatever they want. We let them be happy in their own way. And so why are they giving all this attention to this guy? And then they see their kids, they hear their kids make the vows for the initiation vows, and they just have an amused look on their face. Like, all right, this is good for a couple of years. The kid wants to take a break from normal life for a couple of years. So that tribalism affects newcomers. One day it hits them, I have changed tribes. And often you're not aware of all the waves that causes. Especially in New Zealand, people won't tell you to your face. But still, there's impact generally that, look what so-and-so is doing. Look what my son or daughter or my friend, my ex-friend is doing. My ex-girlfriend or ex-boyfriend. So you're seeing in action the earth changes brought about by just one individual changing tribes. So yes, you have to decide what kind of environment you want for yourself, what kind of influences you want to be open to. And it's a basic fact of behavior, that new habits seem very achievable when you surround yourself with others who are doing those habits on an everyday basis. You want a culture where your desired behavior is the normal behavior. So that's the war of the tribes. One tribe is saying, come back to our tribe, we've got normal behavior. And then there's the Bhakti tribe, Krishna's tribe, calling you. No, this is the tribe with the desired behavior. So then you have to know what you want, what you're doing. And we spoke before about triggers, prompts in your environment. You may not even be conscious of them. We just use the innocent example of, an example I heard of, a young lady who became a cigarette smoker because she liked horseback riding, and whenever she went horseback riding, all her friends were smoking, and so it became part of a ritual that we go horseback riding and we smoke cigarettes and talk. But then finally she realized, I want to stop smoking. So she was smart enough to understand that the two activities are associated, horseback riding and smoking, at least for her. So she said, okay, no more smoking and no more horseback riding. And she went on like that for years. And then one day, she decided to ride a horse after many years. And as soon as she got on the horse, what happened? She felt the urge. She didn't do it, but she felt the massive urge to smoke because embedded in that activity were these triggers, these prompts. So we all have our various individual environmental factors of triggers. Could be different for each one. Some activity that you were habituated to do in the past, and then just by being in a certain environment or certain situation, the trigger goes off. So you have to understand how material nature operates. As the Shastra explains, Maya has two departments, the throwing potency and the covering potency. So it's not that the illusory energy is just laying back and promising not to bother you. No, it jumps out at you from time to time, regardless of your best efforts. So you have to be practical about the way material nature works. Those two departments of Maya, the illusory energy, jumping out at you and grabbing a hold of you, and then covering you over. So sometimes, I like the way Srila Prabhupada explains it. There you are, proceeding merrily along with your bhakti, and all of a sudden the material energy jumps you. What are you doing? Who do you think you are, a saint? Get real. And you start shaking. And up from the depths of your consciousness comes memories of your old behavior, which you thought you were over, and all the stuff you thought you had given up, and it's like a monster that emerges from the dark lagoon of your consciousness. So it shakes you. And obviously, you have to know how to take shelter when that attack comes. You utilize the attack to cling tighter to Krishna's lotus feet, like a little child. A little child feels danger, runs to mother and takes more shelter of mother. So that's how to very expertly engage Maya in Krishna's service. Not that you do Mayic activities, but when the attack comes, you use it to drive you quicker and closer to Krishna's lotus feet. Just like a child knows how to run towards mother at the slightest instance of fear or provocation. So there's the throwing potency, and in which the illusory energy tries to hurl you back into her clutches. And if she succeeds, then it's time for the covering potency. You wonder, how could someone who chanted Hare Krishna and was associated with devotees, how can they just disappear? They're covered. You respond to the energy that you're consorting with. So it's not that you drop your bhakti practices and you just glide back into regular life and you maintain your intelligence and all your realizations. No, guess what? You're coated, you're covered over. Everything depends on which energy you take shelter of. You're tiny. Tiny means, minute means that your dominated by whatever energy of Krishna you take shelter of. So bhakti means to take shelter of Krishna's internal potency. Daivim prakritam ashrita, bhajantyananya manaso, gyatra bhutaramavya. You take shelter of the internal potency, which is devotional service. Material life means you're also taking shelter of a potency, but it's the external, illusory potency. So it is not that you can participate in the illusory energy while maintaining your smarts. Materially, you can be the brightest person and figure out so many material things, but in terms of your overall life, you have no idea. Moreover, you think it's not important to have an idea of what life is all about. I was just reading one statement by a very renowned, brilliant, from the material point of view, philosopher. So he said, if someone asked me, what is the meaning of life? I give it to them straight. The meaning of life is that you haven't died yet. You get it? Deep, huh? Come on, don't you understand? I was looking at me like, the meaning of life is that you haven't died yet. Brilliant, huh? But that's the sign of intelligence stolen. While you can pretend that I'm expert, I'm smart, but the most important things you know nothing about. So let's discuss why Lord Chaitanya, amidst awakening lamentation and humility, is reciting this verse from Siksastakam. He's basically saying Krishna is giving everything. But here we are, so unfortunate. We're not properly taking advantage. And even though we're not taking advantage properly, Krishna is still giving. So that realization in Lord Chaitanya is producing transcendental lamentation and humility. And he presents himself as the aspiring chanter who's having to cope with impediments. Durdaivam idrasam ahajani nanuraga. I'm so unfortunate. I have no raga, I have no attachment for chanting because of offenses. How has Krishna given everything? Nam namakari bahuda nija sarva shaktis. He's put everything into his names. Now you want to get technical, and a more advanced point is that, as the acharyas explain, Krishna has primary names and secondary names. The primary names, Krishna, Gopijana Ballabha, Radha Raman, Nrsimha, Rama, Vasudeva. And then the Supreme Personality Godhead has secondary names. Brahman, Super Soul, Controller, Maintainer. So all Nijasarva Shaktis, all the personal potencies of the Supreme Personality Godhead are there in the primary names, but not the secondary names. The secondary names give you fragmental benefit, shall you say. When you talk about God, the creator, the maintainer, the controller, Brahman, Para-Brahman, you're not getting the full glorious presence of the Supreme Personality Godhead. Because the Supreme Absolute Truth is personal. Just like ordinary example, but if I see Damodar Krishna and I refer to him, that entity sitting right here. Can even get rougher. That creature. Or even that man. There's something there, right? There's some point of reference. There's some correspondence to his reality. But it obviously is very shallow. And such, by my calling him that, it won't really ignite the depths of a personal relationship. Entity, I have something to discuss with you. This entity was wearing saffron before, now he is wearing white. What does this mean, entity? If someone talked to him like that, he probably wouldn't answer. Like, you don't know me, you don't care about me, I'm just an entity. But if you refer to him by his name, oh, Damodar Krishna, who will the lucky one be? Then he feels inspired to talk. Yeah, well. So I'm just giving you these examples so you understand the thing that we forget the most. Krishna is a person. So you just call Krishna God, the maintainer, the controller. Those understandings are absolutely necessary in the beginning, in a preliminary understanding of the spiritual science. So basically what you're grappling with is the Supreme Absolute Truth. Is it personal or impersonal? Once you accept that the cause of all causes is personal, then obviously the more personal your awareness and relationship, the more you know. So all the full potencies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are there in his primary names. People do get a glimmer of benefit, and you can see that. They talk about God, the maintainer, the giver of the daily bread, the creator. There's something there. But it's not enough to produce the most dynamic effects of love. Because love is based on attraction. And how can you be attracted to lack of personal awareness of someone? Now, of the primary names, there's still a further division. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur point this out. And also Srila Prabhupada in Parampara mentions this in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Of the primary names, there's a division. You have the names that are more dealing with Aishvarya, opulence, like Rama, Vasudeva, Nrsimha. Inconceivable power, and you might say royal opulence. And then you have the Madhurya names, the sweet names, especially those names dealing with Krishna's special intimate pastimes. Krishna, Gopi Jana Ballabha, Radha Raman. So this is why Mahaprabhu is saying, Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis. You've got varieties of names for people at whatever level. Those who are relishing the Madhurya, Krishna, Govinda, Radhika Raman. Those who are impressed by a combination of some affection and lots of opulence. Nrsimha, Ramchandra. And then you have persons who are just, it's enough for them just to, the creator, The Creator has a master plan. The maintainer, the giver of the daily bread, Para Brahman, the supreme Brahman. That's enough for the stage where they're at. God defend New Zealand. So my point is that you see all this flow of names as the mercy of Krishna. That's what Lord Chaitanya is emphasizing. And he says, even though there's such a flow of variegated names, and moreover, there's not even rigid rules for chanting these names. So what does that mean? If you want to practice metaphysical speculation, Jnana Yoga, there's so many arduous, stringent rules. Even if you want to practice karma kanda, karmic activities for going to the heavenly planets, so many precise rules and regulations. Or mystic yoga. If people really knew, they often, in the yoga world now, they use the term Ashtanga yoga. If they had any idea what Ashtanga yoga really is, they would faint. It's not just, doing some asanas and breathing exercises and then after class going to a cafe with everyone. Such rigid, stringent rules and austerities. So this is why Prabhupada in his books gives you the full gamut so you understand everything in context. Otherwise you might say, well, why do they emphasize chanting Hare Krishna so much? Aren't there other ways? So, okay, Srimad Bhagavatam lays out the other ways. Can you do this? You want to practice mystic yoga in this day and age? It worked in other yugas, in other ages, but not now. You want to perform good karma? Here's what it's all about. You want to be an impersonalist? As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, klesho dikataras tesam. Very difficult, very grueling. And Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, eventually someone who actually follows that path does wind up coming to me. But Bahunam Jamanamante, Gyanavam Mam Prapadite, after many births and deaths. So you want to do that route? Here it is. So we're not just saying, this is the only way, believe it, accept it. So when you understand all the possibilities that are not feasible, then you see why Lord Chaitanya is known as the most magnanimous. He's saying you can't do any of all that. You can't do Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, Karma Kanda in this age of Kali. Very rare, so rare that it's not even worth talking about. Yet, you can chant Hare Krishna. Now, Jiva Goswami makes the point that in other yugas, like Satya Yuga, when mystic yoga was the common thing to do, with the result of attaining, the end result of attaining the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In other yugas, the chanting of Hare Krishna is also there, but the people are generally so advanced that they think, oh, that's too simple chanting. We're living for 100,000 years. We don't mind spending 60,000 years in samadhi. So even though the chanting of Hare Krishna is eternally present, it's not the Yuga Dharma in Satya Yuga. And furthermore, people think, it's so simple. How could it bring the result? In Satya Yuga, there's not even really Varnashram Dharma. There's just one class, the Hamsas, the swan-like persons. So the whole manifestation of the first verse of Siksastakam, Cheto Darpanamarjanam, Bhava Maha Dava Agni Nirvapanam, that comes about, that emerges from Mahaprabhu presenting what works, what is feasible. There's mercy in feasibility. So sometimes people will say, well, why do you act like your way is the only way? And then you ask, well, what are the other ways? Maybe they don't know. But Bhagavatam lays out the other legitimate ways. Not just, well, I believe this, what do you believe? People in Kali Yuga consider that a way. They consider religious belief to be a way, a path. Bhagavatam doesn't. What are you doing? What are your actions? What is your knowledge? Oh, I believe this and I believe that, and that's enough. No, that's not considered a path in Srimad Bhagavatam. So here we have this inundation of names, authorized names of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Lord Chaitanya is saying, Krishna has made himself present fully in these names. But we're so unfortunate. We're so unfortunate that even though there are no complicated rules and procedures and protocols like there are in mystic yoga, jnana yoga, karma kanda, there's none of that. The door is wide open to chant Hare Krishna anywhere, anytime, any place. But Daivam Ijasa Mahajani Nanuraga. I'm so unfortunate. I'm attached to offensive chanting, and therefore I don't get the raga. So what to do? We'll go over some points about this verse given by the Acharyas. First, we'll jump to the attainment of the ultimate goal, which is pure love of Krishna. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that pure love of Krishna is unattainable without great conviction, dedication, and intense eagerness to relish the name, form, qualities, and activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Our whole bhakti process is meant for developing conviction, dedication, and intense eagerness to relish any opportunity to hear and chant about Krishna. Just so you know that you're making spiritual advancement when you feel that urge, whenever you hear that some glorification of Krishna is going on. You want to seize that opportunity. Just like back in the 60s and during the countercultural days and political uprising days in the USA, the so-called radicals had a slogan, "Seize the time." So yes, we know how to do that in bhakti. We seize an opportunity to hear about Krishna and chant about Krishna. It's aggressive, it's assertive. That's what I want. You don't take opportunities for hearing and chanting about Krishna to be ordinary. That kind of assertiveness begins to dominate your life. I've got to seize this golden opportunity. I can't live otherwise. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam in one purport, you know you're making spiritual advancement when you feel that you can't pass a moment without glorifying Krishna. So that's the gold standard. That's when loyam, intense greed, takes over your life, which is a very advanced stage of bhakti. I often ask, you may remember how to be greedy, right? You want, you can't get enough. What seems to be so material about that drive shows up at the top levels of bhakti as essential. I've got to do this for Krishna. I've got to hear about Krishna. I'm greedy for any opportunity to hear Krishna's name and to chant Krishna's name. The greed takes over your life. Rupa Goswami talks about this in Nectar Devotion, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Lolyam. So you can't get that kind of greed in any material, from any material source. Just to give the example, he said, if you happen to see it on sale in any market, buy it immediately. Take all they've got in stock. But he said, sorry, you can't buy it. It is the rarest commodity in the material world. Loyam, greed for Krishna. But Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says there's a catch here. All right, pure love of Krishna is unattainable without great conviction, dedication, and intense eagerness to relish the name, form, and qualities and pastimes of Krishna. But he says, even if you have that great conviction and dedication, it's still impossible to discuss Krishna without the sangha of sadhus. That's how integral to hearing and chanting is the association of devotees. We need each other, as we talked about the first day. And we need each other to make spiritual advancement so that the atmosphere for hearing and chanting about Krishna becomes more surcharged. So again, note this point. Even if you have the ingredients for pure love of Krishna, great conviction, dedication, and intense eagerness, still, you can't effectively discuss about Krishna without the association of saintly devotees. We spoke an advanced point yesterday about the answer to at what stage does an attainer of pure bhakti acquire his pure identity, his swadharma or Srup Siddhi. And we explained how the acharyas present the role of Bhakti Devi in that. Bhakti Devi as the personification of Srup Shakti, the Lord's internal potency. Everything is personal. We've got to get used to that. We're so accustomed to thinking of energy in an impersonal way. There are these energies floating around in the cosmos, and then there are the material energies and the spiritual energies. We're poisoned by material science that sees everything as inanimate and everything is physical. There's nothing more than physicality in the universe. So when we hear about like Bhakti Devi, it sounds like mythological, doesn't it? The goddess of devotion. Yeah, right. How primitive, how tribal. Sounds like something the Pacific Islanders would believe. But we're sophisticated empiricists. We may talk more about that in the coming classes. We may go to the pastime of Kamsa being terminated in Mathura. And Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, Kamsa represents the ultimate empiricist, that all knowledge comes through sensory experience. Anything else I wipe out in my kingdom. So his determination to kill Krishna is embedded in this personal war he's fighting against transcendental knowledge and transcendental experience. It's all nonsense. There's just what your senses tell you, that's all. And his enthusiasm to wipe out Krishna was also combined with his enthusiasm to immediately stamp out any traces of spirituality, meaning the denial that everything is just sensory input by your physical senses. He wanted to stamp that out, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says. And he went so far as saying that the mistake that's been made by leaders of my ilk in the past, their mistake is that they didn't take immediate action to root out this spiritual stuff. But I am different. I'm going to get Krishna, and I know what comes with Krishna. I'm going to root that out too. What comes with Krishna is the opposite of empiricism, this divine knowledge, this divya gyan. The universe is just physical. There's no knowledge beyond what your physical senses can tell you. The problem with my fellow asuras, my fellow demons, is they didn't stamp this stuff out from the very beginning. I'll show them what a real demoniac leader is like. So therefore, Kamsa had no hesitation to order that all the newborn children in his territory should be killed. So we know that, but what you may not know is that this is also his personal war against spiritual knowledge, spiritual perception. I want to stamp it out throughout my kingdom. The Yadus, I'll terrorize them, I'll make them flee. I want my kingdom free of anything that's non-empirical, anything that points to something that is not perceivable by ordinary material senses. I want that kicked out. So that's part of Kamsa's rage. Anyway, tomorrow. But back to Bhakti Devi. We spoke about how Shreya Kaiva Chandrika Vitarana, the waxing moon, causes the white lotuses to open at night. Meaning, the rays of hearing and chanting about Krishna cause your original constitutional nature to awaken, just like the moonlight opens the white lotuses at night, and the white lotuses start to bloom. So similarly, at the higher levels of bhakti practice, that is what happens. And you're not alone in your endeavors. Bhakti Devi, the personification of the internal potency of the Lord, arranges that your remaining material desires are destroyed. She arranges that your spiritual desires overpower your material desires. So in that way, Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains, she destroys both the gross and subtle coverings of the soul. And as she's doing that, simultaneously your original nature appears. And you see it on the mirror of your now purified consciousness. Previously, you see, conditioned life means, yes, you have the mirror of your consciousness, as Mahaprabhu talks about, Cheto Darpana Marjanam, the mirror and the dust on the mirror. And we talked about how the dust on the mirror is mainly just the false identification with the body and mind. When that dust is removed, and with the help of the internal potency, Swarup Shakti, when that dust is removed, you start to see who you really are. Otherwise, when the dust is on the mirror, what you're seeing on the dirty mirror of your consciousness is the material world. Coming to you through your material mind. And as explained in the 11th canto of Bhagavatam, by your embracing your material mind, you're embracing all the garbage that it's accumulated for countless lifetimes. Knowing that, we should lose our attachment for whatever our mind comes up with. If you really know what the mind is doing to you and what it consists of, the material mind, it's a warehouse of accumulated problems, accumulated misbehaviors, misthoughts for countless lifetimes. So you might think it's my mind, it's just an innocent thing. I've got to live with my mind. You should honor my mind. You should be sensitive to my mind. But know what you're embracing. It's not just the mind, it's all these accumulated thoughts. But when the mirror is polished, it's cleansed, that garbage recedes into the background, and Krishna is helping you through his internal potency. Srup Shakti, Bhakti Devi. It's personal. Krishna has personal energies to put you in illusion. That's Maya Devi, Durga Devi. And Krishna has personal energies to help you out of illusion. Anytime you talk about energy, ultimately you're talking about a person. So as that dust is cleared from the mirror of your consciousness, the reflection on the mirror of your real identity starts to manifest. This is all coming through proper engagement in bhakti, especially hearing and chanting. We might talk further about this point. I'm debating whether to talk about it. For those who have gone to Vrindavan, you may hear sometimes that Babaji's pro-offer that when you're initiated, you should hear what is your original constitutional position from the guru who initiates you. Otherwise, your initiation is not complete. We may speak about Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's reaction to that. He treats it as a business. Well, we can explain to you, in case you're wondering, what happens in the advanced stages of chanting. We're having an initiation today, and no, you will not hear what what your original relationship with Krishna is. No matter how much dakshina you offer. Well, we'll hear a little bit from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. I am overjoyed to hear your enthusiasm for chanting is increasing. As our contaminations are removed by chanting, then the Lord's form, qualities, and pastimes will be revealed to us in the holy name. There is no point in making a separate effort to artificially remember the Lord's form, qualities, and pastimes. The Lord and his name are one and the same. This will be understood clearly when the coverings in your heart are removed. By chanting without offenses, you will personally realize that all perfections come from the holy name. Once aware of the spiritual body, as one continues to chant, one sees the transcendental nature of the Lord's form. Only the holy name reveals the spiritual form of the living being and then causes him to be attracted to Krishna's form. Only the holy name reveals the spiritual qualities of the living being and then causes him to be attracted to Krishna's qualities. Only the holy name reveals the spiritual activities of the living being and then causes him to be attracted to Krishna's pastimes. By service to the holy name, we do not mean only the chanting of the holy name. It also includes the other duties of the chanter. If we serve the holy name with body, mind, and soul, then the direction of that service spontaneously manifests like the sun in the clear sky of the chanter's heart. What is the nature of the holy name? Eventually, all these understandings spontaneously appear in the heart of one who chants the holy name. The true nature of Harinam is revealed by listening to, reading, and studying the scriptures. It is unnecessary for me to write anything further on this subject. All these things will be revealed to you through chanting.